If you are over 60, then you already know this. Love is no longer just about attraction. It is no longer just about whether a man enjoys your company, compliments your smile, or reaches for your hand at the right moment. At this stage of life, relationships begin to reveal something much deeper. They reveal whether two people know how to make each other feel safe, seen, and emotionally at peace. And yet many women still find themselves wondering why a man who seems drawn to them does not fully stay, why he seems close, then distant, why he says he cares, but does not deepen, why he enjoys her warmth, but hesitates when love starts becoming real. Often, the answer is not what most people think. It is not always about beauty. It is not always about chemistry. And it is not always about timing. Sometimes, it is because there are a few deep emotional needs men carry into love, especially later in life, that many women do not fully see, not because women are cold, not because they do not care, but because these needs are rarely spoken aloud. Men often do not explain them clearly, and women are left responding to surface behavior without understanding what is quietly happening underneath. In this video, we are going to talk about 3 deep needs men have in a relationship, especially after 60, that most women overlook. And as we do, I want to show you how these needs play out in real life through 2 simple stories, Margaret and Daniel, and Evelyn and Thomas, because sometimes the truth becomes clearer when we can actually see it in a human way. And if you value thoughtful conversation, 1, he needs emotional peace more than emotional intensity. The first deep need many men have in a relationship, especially older men, is emotional peace. Now that does not mean he wants a woman with no feelings. It does not mean he wants silence, distance, or a relationship with no depth. And it certainly does not mean a woman should hide her needs just to keep a man comfortable. What it means is this: after enough life, many men become far less attracted to emotional intensity for its own sake. They may still enjoy passion, warmth, and closeness, but what makes them stay is often something quieter. It is the feeling that life with this woman will bring steadiness, not constant emotional exhaustion. By 60, many men have already lived through enough tension to know what they no longer want to carry. They may have been in marriages where every conversation turned into conflict. They may have known criticism, coldness, guilt, emotional unpredictability, or the exhausting feeling of never being able to relax at home. So when they enter a new relationship later in life, they often begin asking themselves one silent question: does being with her make life feel lighter or heavier? This is where many women unintentionally misunderstand men. A woman may think, if he really cares, he should be able to handle my emotions. And yes, a good man should be able to hold space for truth, pain, and real feelings. But there is a difference between emotional honesty and emotional turbulence, a difference between depth and emotional chaos. Let me give you the first example. Margaret was 67 when she met Daniel, a widower in his early 70s. They had easy conversation, similar values, and a quiet affection that felt promising. But Margaret had spent many years in a difficult marriage where she was often ignored. So whenever Daniel pulled back even slightly, she became anxious. If he took longer than usual to reply, she felt unsettled. If he seemed tired on the phone, she assumed something was wrong. And because she wanted clarity, she would press for reassurance right away. Daniel liked Margaret very much, but over time, something inside him became hesitant. Not because she was too much, and not because he did not care, but because every small shift seemed to become emotionally loaded. He started to feel that love with her might cost more energy than he had left to give. Now compare that with Evelyn. Evelyn had also been through pain. She knew what loneliness felt like. She knew what disappointment had cost her. But when she met Thomas, she brought something else into the relationship. Calm. Not passivity, not pretending, but calm. If something felt off, she addressed it honestly, without turning every uncertainty into a crisis. She gave the relationship room to breathe. Thomas felt this difference too. He needs to feel respected in his inner world, not just appreciated on the surface. The second deep need many men have is respect, but not in the shallow sense people often assume. This is not about feeding a man's ego. It is not about agreeing with everything he says. And it is not about making a woman smaller so a man can feel bigger. It is about something much more human. Many men, especially later in life, need to feel that the woman they are with sees them fairly, that she notices not only where they fall short, but also where they try, that she does not reduce them to their mistakes, their slowness, their awkwardness with words, or the parts of them that are still healing. You see, many men grow older, carrying a hidden exhaustion. They have spent years being needed for what they do: solve problems, provide, decide, fix, carry responsibility, but not always deeply understood for who they are emotionally. Some have spent decades feeling that no matter what they gave, they were still somehow disappointing someone. So when a man enters a later life relationship, one of the deepest things he quietly longs for is this: to feel respected in the way he is seen. Not worshipped, not idealized, but seen with dignity. This is where Evelyn and Thomas become helpful again. Thomas was not a naturally expressive man. He was thoughtful, steady, kind, but not always quick with language. In his previous marriage, that had often been used against him. His silence was always interpreted as indifference. His hesitation was treated like failure. Over time, he became even quieter, not because he had nothing to say, but because he no longer felt safe being misunderstood again. 3. He needs to feel that love with you has room for tenderness, not just expectations. The third, deep need is tenderness. This may sound simple, but it goes much deeper than people realize. Many women assume that what keeps a man is admiration, attention, or physical attraction. And yes, those things matter. But later in life, many men are quietly starving for something else. A relationship that feels emotionally warm, not just emotionally correct. By this stage of life, many men are tired of relationships that feel like constant evaluation. Tired of feeling measured, corrected, compared, or tested. Tired of only being seen through the lens of whether they are doing enough, saying enough, giving enough. What often softens an older man is tenderness, not caretaking, not overgiving, not mothering. Tenderness. The feeling that love with you has warmth in it, that there is gentleness in your tone, kindness in your responses, softness in the emotional space between you. Margaret, because of her history, often approached love from fear. She wanted certainty so badly that her questions sometimes carried urgency rather than softness. Even when what she wanted was closeness, the emotional tone often felt tense. Evelyn, on the other hand, had learned something after heartbreak. She no longer wanted to force love into shape. So when she spoke to Thomas, even about serious things, there was still gentleness in her way. He felt welcomed, not cornered. He felt emotionally received, not emotionally examined. And that changed everything. Because many older men do not just want to feel wanted. They want to feel emotionally safe enough to soften too. That is something a lot of people miss. Men later in life are often carrying grief they never fully processed, disappointments they rarely talk about, fears about aging, health, youth. What most women misunderstand, what many women misunderstand, is that men do not stay simply because they are attracted. Attraction opens the door, but emotional experience determines whether they remain. An older man may admire your beauty. He may enjoy your company. He may even feel chemistry strongly. But if love with you feels emotionally heavy, critical, chaotic, or endlessly demanding, something in him may step back. On the other hand, if being with you feels peaceful, respectful, and tender, you begin meeting needs he may not even know how to describe. And that is why these three needs matter so much: emotional peace, inner respect, emotional tenderness. These are not flashy needs. They are not always spoken. But later in life, they often become the difference between a man who visits and a man who stays. So what are the deep needs that make older men want to stay? They need emotional peace, not emotional performance. They need respect in the way they are seen, not just appreciation on the surface. And they need tenderness, a kind of emotional warmth that makes love feel soft enough to live inside. That does not mean a woman must become perfect. It does not mean she must have no needs, no voice, or no boundaries. It means that mature love after 60 often grows not through intensity, but through emotional quality, through the way two people feel in each other's presence, through whether love becomes a place of rest or another place of strain. So if this message spoke to your heart, write this in the comments. Peace helps love stay. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more thoughtful conversations about love after 60, emotional wisdom, self-respect, and the kind of relationships that grow safer, deeper, and more beautiful with age. Because your heart matters, your peace matters, and the love you welcome into your life should honor both.